Maybe they can ask them to stop registration and come for the ceremony.
I already,
you
already
sí.
Pues yo diría que en inglés, mira, vamos a estar cambiando on and off, en inglés y en español. Pero sí, ya vi que has estado en todos lados en inglés, así que seguro no tienes problema.
No tengo problema.
Muy bien. Mira, él no quiere que diga más.
So I understand this is your exam week, right?
Yeah.
So it's difficult with the exam week.
Yes, exactly. And we will start any from you. Thank you very much. I will certainly.
Entonces va a ser rápido, sí.
Muy rápido, porque si no se nos va a hacer tarde y el doctor Perrotini se tiene que ir.
Yo la tengo también, 5 minutos.
Y Chinchunji ya me dijo que 5 minutos.
Sí.
Así que todo. Aquí nos falta el rudo.
Barbara, but you can sit here.
Where's Barbara?
Where's Barbara? Yeah, Barbara. Barbara is here. Yeah. You like?
Robo el micrófono porque no tengo.
So for your exam week, you also need to teach?
Well, this is not exam week. This is the last week of classes.
Oh,
yeah.
so you have to attend classes.
Yeah.
No sabía que estaba aquí.
Sí.
Muy buenos días. Vamos a empezar porque lamentablemente quien inaugura formalmente este evento se va a tener que ir a las 9:30 en punto. Entonces quisiéramos evidentemente que no se vaya sin que nos dé unas palabras. I will now switch to English. Does anyone in this room does not understand English? Perfect. Then we will be switching on and off all day long to English and Spanish, but this session we will try to carry on in English. So, good morning again to all of you. On behalf of Eduardo Vega, who is the director of the School of Economics, I would like to extend to you our most warm welcome to this international event, which is an international conference on inequalities and families, an interdisciplinary perspective. And the Faculty of Economics, or the School of Economics, is really glad to host this event, which we are jointly organizing with the Committee of Family Research at the International Sociological Association and UNAM. Unfortunately, we don't have interpretation, as I told you, so we will be switching on and off to English and Spanish. Let me briefly explain that this is a particular week because exams have already started at our faculty, so we will have probably not a lot of attendance on the side of our students. They are concentrating in what they should, which is their exams. And we understand that. In any event, this event will be recorded and will be transmitted live so that they can benefit afterwards of the discussions, the very rich discussions that we will be holding in the next few days. Going now to our subject, the well-known French economist Thomas Piketty, in his Capital in the 21st Century, warns us, income inequality isn't going to go away, and it probably will get worse. Only policies that directly address the problem, in particular progressive or differential taxation, and above all, active family policies, can help to change the course. But inequality among families isn't just about financial needs. It is also about the care that parents can provide their children, the food they can put at their tables, and the amount of nature of time they can spend with their children. But the ability of parents to make the most basic investment in their children, taking time for parent-teacher conference, and setting schedule that permits a parent to sometimes be at home in the after-school hours is very sharply divided by income levels. Some specialists note, even for developed countries, like the US and Europe, that the asymmetry of early life experience increases inequality among children, which plays out in adulthood as a gap of income earning potential. The lack of availability of parental time has serious detrimental effects on children's behavior, ability to learn, emotional development, all of which affects performance in school and eventually in the workplace later on. In a nutshell, if we want to strike at the roots of inequality, we've got to start at its source, in the family, and more precisely, at the very beginning of children's lives. Being optimistic, these few arguments justify largely the value of your work, of your participation at this conference today. Let me now introduce our guests here today very, very quickly so that we hear what they have to say. First of all, Chin-Chun Yi is a research fellow at the Institute of Sociology, Academia Sinica, Taiwan. She received a BA in Sociology for National Taiwan University, MA in Sociology for University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and a PhD from the Department of Sociology, University of Minnesota. Chin-Chun Yi has been an active member of ISA since 1990, and she is the current president of RCO6, as well as ISA Executive Committee member on Research Council. And welcome to you and to this opening session. Then, immediately after her, we have Dr. Perrotini. Dr. Ignacio Perrotini is the coordinator of the postgraduate programs in economics at UNAM. That doesn't mean only the School of Economics, but all the School of Economics and research institutions on economics within the UNAM context. He has a PhD in economics. He's a well-known researcher in economics. He conducts a Journal of Economics in the School of Economics, where we are today. And with not further ado, I will pass to the next person, who is Bárbara Barbosa Neves, and she is the Secretary and Treasurer of the RCO6, and we welcome you. We are very glad to have you here today. And finally, last but not least, we have our very how could I put it? Very active participant in this table. I would say that he's a bit the brain of this international conference. He has been very, very helpful at putting all the academic side of the event together. He has talked to, I believe, every one of you here, and certainly he has been in touch with me all day long for the last 3-4 months.
Yes.
So I'm very, very, very happy to, well, I haven't said your name. Lucas Czarnecki, you know him, and he has also a PhD in science for UNAM and from a European university. So with no further ado, I would like to pass the word to Chinchunyi.
Thank you.
Chinchunyi.
No, sorry. Probably you want to present the...
Yeah, I'm gonna present the
Lucas,
overview.
go first, and then we'll give you the word.
Welcome at the UNAM, and thank you all of you to being with us. I'm, as a chair of a local organizing committee, I would like offer special thanks for the Committee on Family Research, International Sociological Association for help in organizing this event, especially for Chinchunyi, for giving me the confidence to go ahead with this. We just, talk about organizing this event in Mexico last year in Beijing on our annual conference, and as well as the National Autonomous University of Mexico, and particularly for the School of Economics. Thank you for Eduardo Vega, who is the director, and Veronique Deli. Thank you also for Barbara Barbosa Neves, our secretary of RC06, for her support. This conference wouldn't be possible to organize without the help and support of the RC06 as well as School of Economics. I'm asking myself, isn't it provocative, to organize the event of sociology at School of Economics? I would argue not at all. Because, look at these titles. For economics scientists, inequality tends to have an income distributive meaning. Just look the books. In all of this, inequality is singular. In contrast, in other social sciences, such as sociology and political science, the inequalities is always in plural. As we focus on inequalities in health, education, labor, ethnic, gender, and many, many more. Thus, a dialogue between these disciplines can be enriching. Indeed, this holistic socioeconomic category of inequalities has been welcomed by Economic Commission on Latin America, in Latin America and Caribbean, and as particular by its executive secretary, Mexican, very important figure, Alicia Bárcena. In the Latin American region, particularly, the problem of inequality in terms of income distribution is overwhelming, as can be seen in this map from the socioeconomic database. You can see, the Gini coefficient registers a small decrease in last 3 years. It says nothing about inequalities in terms of the social dimensions. So one of the most important aspects of life in Latin America, which might help us understand these patterns, is the family, which is deeply embedded in this reproductive system of inequalities, or using Polanyi's term, disembedded from the social, divided in social classes, as you might see on another graph. This comes from Latino Barometro and the subjective social classes perception. As you may see also on the graph on the right side, a quarter of the total Latin America and the Caribbean countries not having enough to eat, data reported in 2015. This is the reality of the great differences between rich and poor, creating, as our keynote from tomorrow will say, Goran Terborn, a killing field, or, as I would say, the landscape of oblivion. And I would mention now one of the greatest Mexican writer, who is the Juan Rulfo. This is the centenary of the birth of him. He wrote the very first sentence in his short story titled "Because We Are Poor." Here everything goes from bad to worse. Even though I have a message for you, all members, RC06, and participants of this event. Let's build, bridge, and to build better world. Let's contribute in the deconstruction and multiplication of new categories in terms of inequalities and families. And I hope you enjoy your stay here at the UNAM in Mexico City. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucas. And now I'll pass the word to Chinchunji.
Thank you. Thank you, Veronica. Well, Professor Perolini Hernandez, Barbara maybe, Lucas, and all dear attendants, thank you for coming to the opening. And as the president of Research Committee on Family, International Sociological Association, please allow me to introduce our organization to you. Okay. The next slide. As some of you may or may not know, that ISA, International Sociological Association, was founded in 1949, before many of you were born, under the auspices, so is I, of UNESCO. And currently, under ISA, there are two large branches. One is what we call Research Council, or Research Committees. There are 57 research committees, plus 7 working or thematic groups, meaning they are smaller. And Research Committee on Families, RCO6. By the very number, you can tell we are one of the oldest. It's also one of the largest committee in ISA. And since 2002, there's another branch being established, which is we call it Council of National Associations. And currently, there are 61 national sociological associations. They belong to ISA. Now, come back to our yeah, right, and then the next. So for the next slides, you will see Committee on Family Research, RCO6, was founded in 1959. I thought it was 57. I was wrong. But Barbara, our, we are so lucky to have Barbara as our secretary. As of January 2017, RCO6 has 327 members. And I know some RCs, even though they were established later, like tourism or leisure, they grow very fast. So anyway, the purpose of the Committee on Family Research is to encourage family research of high quality within and between countries. So very naturally, we really focus on the international comparison or international study or exchange. Now, how about RCO6 meetings? Let me just focus on our annual meetings for you. It started in several years, 59. Okay, so anyway, it started, our record shows it started in 1960. Now for this particular region, and especially Mexico City, I was very happy to found, actually this will be the 3rd time they will have the RCO6 meeting in Mexico City. The first time was, as you can see, it was 1982, when ISA has its 10th World Congress being held in Mexico City. In other words, ISA has World Congress once every 4 years. So back in 1982, it was the first time that a lot of our sociological colleagues came to Mexico City for the big conference, and RCO6 are among them. The second time, I was very privileged to be here when I was the vice president of RCO6. In 2005, Cristina Gomez organized a conference on social development and family change, which I think it attracted around like 80 or 100, demographers, social scientists, family researchers to come here. And this time is 2017. Lucas organized Inequalities and Families and Interdisciplinary Research, and we are all here. So I searched around, the Google, say, do we have any RCO6 meeting in the neighborhood? And yes, we did, in 1975. Actually, it was, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Curaçao? Yeah, West Indies. Coração, okay.
It's Portuguese.
Oh, I see, okay. So it was a small seminar. RCO6 used to have a small seminar, even with a restriction of attendance, not more than 30. But then it turns out to be a larger meeting and becomes conferences. So see, we're not new, but we're still as excited as the newcomers, okay? How about future meetings? For ever since 2015, when I became president of RCO6, we try to have 2 annual meetings each year, which is difficult, but with the help of the local organizers such as Lucas and his good friends, it was possible. So anyway, in next year, 2018, in May, we will have a seminar in Singapore held by Jin Yang, who is a provost chair professor at the National University of Singapore. And this will be a joint conference between RCO6 family and RC41, which is population. And so they'll be changing demography and changing families. As far as I know, they have already received 400 abstracts, too many to be accepted. So I guess Singapore is probably somewhere, that people really want to see how societies are changing too. And then in next July, as some of you have already known, it will be the 19th ISA World Congress. And for RCO6, our Vice President, Mark Hutter, our Secretary, Barbara Navies, and our previous Secretary, Ria Smith, from South Africa, is organizing it. We have 24 sessions. Is that right? We have 24 sessions, and the final announcement will be made by the end of this month, which is several days, in advance. Hope we'll see some of you there. So we are really thankful, to be here, and of course we want to thank Lucas and Manorica, for doing all this together. We also want to thank, the General Secretary of the UNAM, Dr. Lomeli. It's hard for me with my eyesight, and also, Dr. Vega and Dr. Deli, and also, and of course, Dr. Veroniti Hernandez. And lastly, but not least, we really thank all the keynote speakers and all the discussants and presenters and all participants. So, my last slides. We welcome you. Actually, I was counting myself. I just realized this is my 28th time since 1990 when I attended the first RCO6 conference. Boy, I'm very faithful, right? So I really would like to invite you to join us, and you won't regret. So now comes to the material side. If you join RCO6, membership fee is only $40 every 4 years. But ISA does not count RCO6 membership. They count ISA membership, which is separated by categories, economic development by category A, B, C, such as Mexico would be in category B, right? Yes. Right. And you will see for every 4 years, the membership fee will be between $200, $139. And for student, the fare is even lower. So if you're in the last 2 years of PhD, join us quickly. You get benefit for 4 years. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Inchuji. Barbara, do you have something to add in really a few words?
Good morning, everybody. Well, I didn't know I was going to be here today. So Chin Yi already talked about our fee structure. I just would like to emphasize that we are one of the most active and one of the largest committees within the ISA. I'm going to be here throughout the conference. So if you want to join us, please come and see me. We also have a website if you need to find us online. If you need to find me, I'm at the University of Melbourne in Australia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. That was quick. Dr. Ignacio Perrotini, if you may, a few words, and please open for us formally this event.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will be much quicker than Barbara, by the way. Well, I think my role here is just to give you the warmest welcome to UNAM, since I am the local person in this school. I mean, And I'm just substituting for Professor Eduardo Vega, who is the chair of the department, of the economics department. And Eduardo is engaged right now in the book fair of Guadalajara, which is a very international, important book fair. So he couldn't make it for this morning, and he asked me to substitute for him. So I just want to, welcome you and perhaps say a few words about the subject of your conference. Of course, needless to say, I wish you, success in this gathering in inequality and families and interdisciplinary perspective. Well, in spite of significant progress in some social areas, poverty remains a persistent phenomenon in Latin America. More importantly, high inequality has become one of the trademarks of the region in terms of the personal distribution of income. Latin America and the Caribbean is the most unequal region in the world. Moreover, the commodity boom tilted the functional distribution of income away from wages and toward profits that in general have not been reinvested in productive uses. The spread of democracy in the region has been challenged by the failure of the governments to respond to rising social demands and impending corruption in some countries. Since the 1980s, up to the present day, for over 3 decades, Latin America as a whole has registered mediocre growth trend levels. The average rate of per capita GDP growth for the period 1980 to 2014 is only 2%. This performance responds not only to the medium and long-run effects of successive economic crisis episodes within the region. For this particular reason, I mean very, very poor economic performance in the region, we have high inequality, and not only high, but also rising inequality. And it is very important that you are having this conference on this, which is one of the most pressing topics in the region. And I think this is going to have a very important impact, and not only in Mexico, but perhaps in the whole region. And I'm sure that you will have a very enlightening and profound discussion on this topic. So once again, welcome to Mexico, welcome to UNAM, and this is your house. Please, if this is your first time in Mexico, for some of you, please feel at home. This is your house. Thank you very much. I wish you the best success.
Thank you. Yes. Very quickly.
So now we are in a few minutes at 9:30. We are going to start with our first keynoter, Dr. Gina Zabludowski. Thank you so much. Yeah. Maybe first we will have group photo. How about group photo?
Where? Here?
Yeah. Maybe yeah.
Okay. They want to make sure you're here. See? That's the key. People who are under 40, you must be done. No, let's just kidding. Let's just kidding. Everybody wants to be done at 8:40.
Only 5 times. Muchas gracias. Yo siempre de lado. Sí. Sí.
Gina, que está en medio, y Clara, nada más. Sí.
Doctora Gina, ¿tiene PowerPoint?
Gina la vamos a poner en medio.
Doctora, doctora.
Lucas ya no está aquí. Te los regalo. ¿Cómo? No, ya lo puse.
¿Ya lo pusiste? ¿Sí? Ah, sí, sí, sí.
Women's business.
Okay. Voy a ver.
Por favor. ¿Cómo está?
Bien, bien, gracias.
Bueno, muchísimo gusto.
Igualmente. Me siento aquí para que la vaya bien.
Ah, sí, sí.
¿Tú me la vas a pasar? Ay,
Sí, sí,
ay,
sí.
está.
Sí, sí. Si quiere la puedo pasar.
No, está bien.
Está bien, sí. Ah, y aquí tiene.
¿Dónde me siento?
Ah, sí, puede.
Normalmente en medio, pero donde usted se sienta
no, está
cómoda.
bien, porque
Si
quería ver la
quiere
presentación.
estar más cerca de la pantalla, puede. No hay ningún problema. Somos tres, así que cambiamos la...
Doctora, y aquí tiene. Cambiado.
Los agujeros. Gracias. Después ya la tiene. Gracias. Ay, qué frío.
¿Todo listo? Well, welcome back. This is our first plenary session, and as I expressed earlier today, family and inequalities, but particularly family, are at the very heart of our society. And if we want to strike at the roots of inequalities, we've got to start at the source. Family is about children, about men, about women, about inequalities, about discrepancies. It is about racism. It is about minorities. It is about the family and behavior in the family, but also individual behavior at the workplace. So we are really touching upon a very large issue within society. For this first plenary session, I have the honor to present our two outstanding women here at the table, which is Gina Zabludowski and Clara Hussitman. Both have an impressive academic and professional path. To be fair, I will introduce one of them in English and the other one in Spanish. So I'll start with Gina, since she will be our keynote speaker. Gina Zabludowski has a PhD in sociology. She is a full-time professor in the School of Political and Social Science here at UNAM. And she has worked in other research and higher education institutions here in Mexico and abroad, Flaxo, CIDE, among others. She has earned many recognitions, both as a researcher and also for her teaching activities. Since March 2015, she is part of La Junta de Gobierno, which is our governing board at UNAM. She has been conducting research in areas such as history of social science in Mexico, enterprises and entrepreneurs, women in charge of directive posts, among others. Since 1991, she has dedicated her research work to women managers and executives in Mexico. She has been advisor to the United Nations Fund for Women, UNIFEM, and member of the expert group meeting for women in economic decision-making positions, which prepared the action platform for the International Conference about Women in Beijing, and was responsible for designing the research program for the Center of Studies about Women in High-Level Directions. She is the author of 29 books. I won't tell you all the names, but you can see that she writes. She has a pen in her hand, always. Among which there are a few that I will mention. Intellectuals y Burocracia, Intellectuals and Bureaucracy, Modernity and Globalization, Empresarias y Ejecutivas en México, Diagnósticos y Desafíos. And in 2014, she published her first storybook, No Entiendo a las Mujeres, I Don't Understand Women, which I must read. She wrote several chapters about Mexico in the books Women Entrepreneurs in Small and Medium Enterprises. This was done for OECD in 1997, and Women in Management Worldwide. This is with Gower, York University. She has organized and coordinated more than 100 academic events and has been keynote speaker for many national and international events and have represented Mexico in several congresses on women managers and executives organized by United Nations Organization, APEC, OECD, and Catalyst, an important organization. She has contributed actively with communication means, with journals articles, written press interviews, as well as radio and TV interviews, among which the interview with Newsweek, with Wall Street Journal, and Correre de Serra in the issues of women in charge of direction. Today, Gina Zabludowski is our keynote speaker for this first plenary session, and she will share her ideas about women in business. Gina, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's a great honor for me to be here. As you realize for my CV, I have not specially done research about, well, my research has to do with inequalities and families, okay? But the title and the field has mainly to do with women in business. So what I'm going to do now, it's going to be like a very visual presentation based on graphics and based on statistics. I hope that it's not going to be too boring for this, but I'm going to talk on women in business, and I'm trying to ask the question, since it's a research committee on families, should the relation between women and their families. So in this presentation, you will see one main question: why women in business are unmarried executives, old age mothers, and unpaid workers at family firms. Okay, so I will show in these presentations these three characteristics in relation to family and business in women involved in business. So I'm going to take, what I'm going to be presenting has to do first with the general sites about women participation in the workforce and as college graduates in Mexico. Then I'm going to be talking about women managers and executives, then about women business owners, then about women in family firms, and final, glass ceiling and parental leaves. Well, let me make a distinction between, I will be making some distinctions that they are not specified in my presentation, but there's a difference between women, as you probably all know, between women managers and executives and women business owners. Women managers as executives are those who are not the owner of their business, and they're usually working in high positions in large corporations. What women in business, they are the owners of their business, they work on their business, and they usually in the micro sector, mainly in the informal economy, and they are really at the poorest sector, talking statistical. Well, I'm going to start about the women participation in the workforce. As you can see, it has increased considerably over the last years. This is the data of Mexico. no, from 1992 to 2015. This is another graphic where you can see men and women in the workforce in Mexico, okay? For the data of the last year, there are 41 women and 59 men. But then we start talking here about inequalities. Male and female labor force in relation to salary. So if you see here, as the salary is higher, the presence of women is lower. It can clearly see in relation to the minimum wages that they are doing. So if you see, and this is what I'm gonna talk about, the informal and unhidden presence of women in multiple aspects of economic life. We know that from feminist theory, okay, that the woman work at home is hidden and it's not recognized. But as we will show in this as I will show in this presentation, this hidden work also work for the work that woman is doing all around. So a woman who doesn't receive any salary and they declare themselves as workers are 68%. We have to find more about what kind of women are that. Then women who receive just one minimum wage, they are 64% of the labor force, while in the level where the workers receive more than 5 minimum wage, they are just 31%. So it is clear that as the minimum wages are higher, the presence of women is lower. And this is the gender, the 20 years gender gap in Latin America and how it has decreased only 13%. I mean, it's really not enough, taking into account that you are taking 20 years, okay? From 39, okay? So you can see that in this graphic. Well, one of the main changes, as probably you all know, the main transformation has to do in college education. I mean, women have been increasingly working out of their homes and getting a salary, but the main transformation and the big one has been male and female and college graduates in major sites, and this is in Mexico City. In some universities, in the 1970s, they were 17%, and now there are 51%. The increases of women in the university is really high, and especially in some occupations that they were formerly male occupations, like medicine. Okay, for example, where the presence of women is now in many medicine schools, we have now more women than men studying medicine. And if we look at the careers or the bachelor's degree, where we have the largest population of students in Mexico, which are law, accounting, and business administrations. These three specialities has like the 40% of student population in Mexico, and then half of them are men and half of them are women. Okay, and women are okay, but for sure the percentage of men and women enrolled in different higher education sectors, it's very different in different specialities. So in the academic fields that have to do with education, women are clearly a majority. Why in social science they are also, but why in engineering and technology they are still a minority, and especially in some areas that has to do with, for example, things that has to do with oil production. How do you call the engineers in oil or the engineers in mining? You really have a low percentage of women, and also in the things that are related to works in computers. So things there, I'm going to talk about the other universe of women that has to do with women directors and managers in the large companies in Mexico. As I already told you, that it has to do, they are women who are the executives and directors, and they are not the owner of the big firm usually. So if you can see for this graphic, the presence of women as director is lower in the private companies than in government offices. You take really, this is a very wide definitions of directors. I'm not very much agree with this one, but I took it from the Census Bureau. And I don't agree because the minimum wage is just five minimum salaries to talk about executive and people to talk about directives. So if you talk about 5 minimum salaries, you are not really talking about director positions, okay? But I couldn't disaggregate this data more, but. So I just take the ones who are earning more than 5 minimum salaries, but then you see this proportion that in the private companies and in the private world, usually discrimination about women has been more important than in the government one. Then you have some countries participation, selected countries' participation of women in executive positions in Latin America, according to the Global Gender Gap Report. And you have in this year, you have the first one, it was Brazil, and then you see Peru, Colombia, and Argentina. I'm sort of surprised about the data about Colombia, because Colombia is usually high in the percentage of women as managers and also as participation in public positions of government. So I don't know how it has to do with the year or not, but just to see that the participation is low, I mean. Okay? Then this is from my own investigation. I'm talking here, it was a very hard graphic to do. I do this myself, I constructed myself, and it was hard because you don't have many informations about women and men in the most high executive positions. I'm talking about general directors, I'm talking about CEOs, general directors of commerce, general director of productions of the main 500 corporations of Mexico. For this graphic, I took 300, almost 300 of the 500 corporations, and then you can see that really, if we talk about CEO, we really have 2% of all the companies, and there's really a vertical segregation and horizontal segregation really in relation to an occupation. So if you see this, women are this is the general director of marketing, then you have 29 of them are women. Human resources, there's a position where you can find women directors of human resources. It comes 21%. And of course, in finance and administrations and operations, you only have 8%. Usually, this horizontal segregation is not just about field of kind of occupation, but it's about opportunities. Because usually you have opportunities of getting a higher position if you are in the operation or in finance than you have it if you are in a human resource management place. So the occupation has to do with the opportunities of getting to the top. Okay, so here we have. And then we have women in management roles in some selections company in Mexico. They have Manpower, General Electric, Coca-Cola, Nestlé, Televisa, Santander, Hewlett-Packard, and Microsoft. I have been doing research and I have been talking with people of Microsoft and Hewlett-Packard, and they say that even though they take care of diversity programs, acknowledging women presence, they have some problems in relations with what women study, and they do not have enough women studying engineering. Also, even though IBM, for example, put an interesting program with a private school, with a private university in Mexico that have high school levels, and they have a program targeting girls at high school levels in order to get them into engineering professors. Now we come to finally. Marital status, that's a key thing. High percentage of single women among executives working in the largest corporations in Mexico. So if we take the largest corporation in Mexico, those who are that have 250 employers or more, employee or employers, I always remember employers are employees, workers, okay, or more, then employees. You see the difference, employees, okay? While executives, men, you have, among men, you have 75 of them are married, while among women, you have only 49%. And this is a very normal, this also occurred in women who have a power position, not only in the private sector, but in the public one or as a politicians. You can also, you regularly find a larger amount of women who are single. So there are a lot of related questions that we have to do more research about that. I have the questions now, but from this percentage, there's a question, there's a lot of questions. Difficult to finding the, well, you know, as family specialists, you can do a lot of questions, no? How do we came to that? Why, okay. Okay, and then, so I'm gonna show you the graphics, and I think that from each graphics I have questions to do research, but but I will not do the questions now. So but one of them is what happened. The essential one is what's happening at home and in marriage relations. Okay, that's essential. The other one is why does this company are not putting enough parental leaves and flexible hours, and especially for executives. And I tell you that this is how women executives delayed maternity. If you see this graphic, the one that you see, the blue one, has to do with women non-working in the non-working population in Mexico, women who doesn't work or who only work at home. When they are between when they get 25 years, 90% of them are mothers. The other one, the red one, has to do with women who are working. I mean, who are in the, you know, who are women workers or women in the employed occupation. You can see then that they also delayed maternity. But if you will see in women executives, when they are 29, of course, only 20% of them are mothers. when they are between 30 and 34, only 50% of mothers. So this is a characteristic of women executives in high positions. Okay, that delayed motherhood, and of course there are a lot of interpretation. I think that each graphic takes you to a research. Okay, okay, and this is another one. Due to the discrimination against mothers and lack of opportunities to reconcile work and family roles, many women managers who approach the age of 35 leave their job and their chances of reaching higher positions. And then you see the graphic of advancement. The first ones has to do with the director's positions. See how in the directive positions at between 34 years and 45 years, the range of men is going really higher and of women really lower. And it doesn't happen in the other population that is economically active. So what happens here? Women executive and the twin task management. In Latin America, and due, of course, to the great inequality situations among women of different status, many of the women in high executive positions do not do domestic work directly, but instead hire other women, domestic workers, nannies, etc. This has to do a lot of about inequality about women in Latin America. Okay. However, the extent that they are responsible for the coordination of work at their home and at the companies where they work, these women bear the burden of what has been called a twin task management. They usually are stressed out and have a guilty feeling for not doing their best at work at home. Working mothers and professional women glass ceiling. Okay, this is, as you know, the glass ceiling is something that you don't see, it's invisible, but it's an obstacle to going higher in the organizations. So these are recent things in relation to the United States, recent data. Announcing a pregnancy can halt professional growth and the prospect of higher earning. Motherhood can mean 5% wage, I think that more, penalty per child. Motherhood is a greater predictor of wage inequality than gender. Why identical resumes companies are 79 less likely to hire a mother and to promote it. There has been a research made by Catalyst, some of the most prestigious organization about research and action in women in management, and they presented for manager positions curriculum without names, and with the same profile, okay. And if it was a man, the question to if you have children, it didn't have any cost. If it was a woman, the question if you have children, it really interfered with the opportunities of getting hired. And then we have, well, 40 years ago, it was published a really outstanding book of Rosabeth Moss-Kanter from Harvard University that it's called Men and Women of the Corporation. And he used the Max Weber's theory of bureaucracy and patron and types of domination. I have been working a lot about that. I have a book about Max Weber patrimonialism, so this is one of my fields also. But she shows how in the great corporations, it was 40 years ago, so we have to ask if it's still working like that, if it's still real. It's another field of research. For relation among men, the rational bureaucracy model of Max Weber rationally predicted hours of office work It was like that in organization. But as far as the relation between men and women, it was a traditional and patrimonial model, well, where the tasks that you have to realize were not being written, and that it was more expected in relation to the people who were working it, and they expect to you to give emotional support more than work that you can measure. So for talking about the secretary of a big executive, she did this metaphor, the office wife. The patrimonial and non-rational elements of the secretarial role relations have led to the frequent use of the marriage metaphor to describe the relations between secretaries and their bosses. Qualities of the secretary wife. Appearance. We have a lot of discrimination about the appearance of Mexico. That's a key for inequality. It just doesn't have to do with women and men, but we can see announcements for jobs that they ask for a good appearance. And good appearance, it usually means being white, being high, especially for women, okay? So we have a lot of discrimination about age, about not incorporating indigenous population and everything. I'm not going to talk about that. But qualities of the secretary wife: appearance, working as a couple in the eyes of others, a non-rational relationship with terms set by a personal negotiation, expectation of personal service including office work, housework, expectation of personal loyalty, symbolic and emotional rewards, emotional division of labor with the woman playing the emotional role and the man the providing role, and wife's duties of the secretary, such as sending Christmas cards, preparing refreshments, providing protection from subordinate, children, etc. And then Cantor also said that besides, there's about hidden role of wives in a man executive. Then you have the corporate wife. I'm sorry, I was reading that. This one is the one that I was reading. I'm sorry about that. And then you have the corporate wife, the wife of the executive of the man who has a high management position. And 40 years ago, I think it also working today in global companies when you expect to send a man, a manager, a man who has a high executive position from one place to the other one in the work, and you tell him, listen, tomorrow you have to be working 2 years in China instead of working in the United Kingdom, and you expect that man to have a family, to move very quickly because he has a corporate wife, okay? So what corporate wives are doing? They don't belong to the organization, and indeed, that explains why organization preferred hiring a married man because he can have the attention of her wife. Okay, so I'll go very quickly. Okay, so symbolically, if you hire one man, the corporation asks, one married man, the corporation act as they are hiring 2 people, and if you hire a woman who is married, they act that they are hiring half of it. Then I go to women entrepreneurs, women business owners. That has to do with the ones that are the owners of the company. Well, I have to go, this is the percentage, I have to go very fast, okay, because I just have 10 minutes, okay. Women entrepreneurs, the role of family background, it's a key one. Then the George roles, of origins. Gender roles are shaped from very early, okay? So you have, and usually what's important is and they are also usually associated to masculinity. So when a woman wants to be an entrepreneur, you have to ask a lot about the father figure as a role model, because it has to do, okay, and usually daughters who want to go to business in traditional family, in patriarchal families, they can lead to questioning the gender roles of the family. Okay, here you have that, as happened in all occupations, the presence of women as employer is limited to some sectors, okay, mainly services. And then I'm gonna go to a key question that has to do with women in family firms. Family firms, and well, one of the specialists as advisor of family firms is Salon Gravinsky, who's joining me now, and he's here. And he's always saying family business has to do with all sizes of company. So I'm going to talk what happened in the largest family, in the woman in small and medium established family firm, and in the micro business. Family business, as a definition of Salo Gravinsky, are those who are owned and managed by two or more members of one or more families. They make all kinds of decisions. Okay. Okay, so you can look at it, because I have to go fast. What happened? I'm gonna start with the largest corporation, and then I go to the micro level. In the largest corporations, in the one who are at the stock exchange. No, if you talk about the stock exchange, if you look at the administration council, you find more women in family firms, in big family firms. But at the same time, this is like a simulation. A lot of times, for fiscal reasons, I don't know with what reasons, they put women on the boards in family firms, because you look at the last name, they have the same surname. That's why I look about. But they appear listed, but usually they don't have an active role, and they are not taking the decisions, and they have they never vice-president and never presidents. But then we have the other one. There's a woman in small and medium established firms. Firms that they already exist. So family business presents advantage and disadvantage for women. The advantage are flexible hours, scope of actions, higher chance of venturing in male enterprise as construction, mining, and others. Possibility of taking their babies and young children to work. But then you have the limitations. Cultural barriers, discriminations, low profile, invisible tasks, just as at home, lower range positions, and unpaid job. This is a study made in Andalusia about women in family business in Andalusia, and they show how, well, most of the women who were interviewed, there were more than 500 interviews, they were married. And this shows, okay, now this is hard to see. Okay. This shows, this shows formal and informal work of women in family firms. So work who is not recognized and usually not paid of women, it means it's the red one, it means they are working almost 5 hours a day during weekends and 3 hours a day during the weekends in the family firm, and they are not paid, they are not recognized, and they don't have a formal positions. And here are the active, okay. Well, I'm gonna show you what, because I get mixed with it. Now I'm going, okay. Oh, that's going to take any more time. I'm sorry about that. Okay, this is hard to see, but I'm telling you, this is the work that women, the invisible work that women are doing at family business. They go to the business, you ask them, do you work? They usually tell, no, I don't work, I just go to my husband's business. And this is the invisible work that they're doing. They are customer service in 30%, attending customers 30% of the day, cleaning the place and doing housework in the business. And they then recognize the name, and some of them are also administration, accounting. Some of them have to do with that the workers feel well, emotional work, but they do a lot of work, 4 or 5 hours a day, and this is informal work of women at family firm. This is the relations of between women informal workers and the owner of the company. In Andalusia, it's usually the husband. And here is the hidden role of women. I'm not good to do that. I think I want to pass it to you, and I'll let you know when I have to. I'm sorry. You know, I have to go to, I don't know. Okay. Okay. This is the hidden, okay, this is, I'm gonna leave it to you because I can see the well from here. I don't know if it's this one. Okay.
¿Quieres que lo pase yo?
Hidden role of women in family firms. I'm not gonna talk very much about that, but family firm, just like household, function through cooperative conflicts on the basic pillars such as gender of age, which determines the bargaining power of their members. So what do a woman do there that it's invisible? They take important decisions, but they due to socialization, sometimes the decision for the company, they act as it has been taken by the men of the family. After working as vice president without salary for a long period of time, vice president quoted, they accept to be moved to a less important position as secretary of Church of Emotional Support, example, at the moment in which their children or their sons-in-law are incorporated into the company, to which, of course, the daughters were never invited. And then we are going to take about the most important presence of women that has to do with the micro business. Women who start a business do it alone or in collaboration with their families. This I'm talking, I don't know if the term is businesswoman, because it's really not, it's really in the very lowest position. It's more autosubsistencia, ¿cómo se llama? Informal workers that you have to open a kind of business, a self-employment. Really, it has to do with self-employment with a family in very precarious positions, because this is through the encuesta of micronegocios, who has to do a lot with informal participation and in the lowest position. So women at this level, women who founded a company usually do it with their family, with their son, with a daughter, or with a sister. Why? Because they have less access to other circles, to other networks, where usually men have access and they can get other time of credit. And here I'm talking really about the poverty levels and the most important size of business in Mexico, because 95% of the business in Mexico do employ less than 10 people. Then I'm talking about this kind of business, and in this kind of business are women who found a business to get out of poverty, and because there is not enough offered of formal work. So in this field, in this context, usually the motives for founding a micro-family business are not so much the result of business initiatives, but of the lack of employment and the effort made by the adults of a family to cover the basic needs. So businesswomen are concentrated in these low income levels. Then you see the same that you see in the salary, in what they earn in terms of salary. You see it here in women are concentrated in the lowest income enterprises, if you can call them that way, or self-employed units, or okay. And in this level, women are starting more business than men. Okay, these questions are a lot. It has to do with job opportunities. It has to do with not formal work or not. It has to do with a lot of things. And this is a graphic that I have made about glass ceiling in Mexico, like a synthesis. So if you see in Mexico what you can call glass ceiling, 5% of directors, general directors of corporation are women. Now 5% of CEO are women. 12% of women in the main executives role in corporations. As business owners, 20%. As workers in general, 38%. Because the recent changes in that has to do with men and women quotas in the legislative power, the woman presence in this year, it was like 1 or 2 years ago, it was 38%. In universities is 50 and 51%. And then there's a thing that we call in Mexico ninis. It's a recent terminology that it says ni estudian ni trabajan. They don't work and then they don't study. They don't study. And in this percentage, women are 75%. It doesn't really that they are not working, they are probably working home, as feminist economy suggests, but in this level, ninis are mainly women. And then I have some graphic that has to do, that shows how women are still responsible for carrying out most of the domestic duties, okay? Like taking care of children, doing housework, the other one, community work, the other one, okay? And the presence of men, it's a majority just when it has to do with other kind of things. This is women and the double boarding, weekly or paid housework hours. This has to do with maternity leave in Latin America and the Caribbean, full-time pay in different countries. I can read them, all of you, but probably you have more information because that's your specialty, okay? But this is 18 weeks in Chile, Cuba, and Venezuela, 17 in Brazil, 10 in Honduras, okay? Because I'm finishing with this because I think that the key part of the change is in parental leave and in parental leave. This is paid paternity leave, have to do with fathers. In some countries, in Mexico, for the first time, we have, like 2 years ago, an obliged father's leave for 5 days. Okay, so you see Mexico at the bottom with Chile and Brazil with 5 days of paid paternity leave. Okay, and then I'm gonna send end with some images quoting both Dylan. That times they are changing. There's a song about it. So these are some of the images that show the changes in occupations and fields, and I hope that the work will I think that we'll have more changes in those directions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Zabludovsky. Y ahora, como lo prometí, voy a hablar en español un poquito, y me es muy grato, de verdad, presentarles a nuestra comentarista, Clara Hutzitman Rapoport. Ella es presidenta fundadora de Incide Social, una organización civil que hace investigación para la incidencia en política social y prevención social de las violencias. Es miembro titular del Seminario de Cultura Mexicana, miembro del grupo redactor de la propuesta de la Constitución de la Ciudad de México que haría el jefe de gobierno Miguel Ángel Mancera. Es miembro de la Asamblea Constitutiva y de la Junta de Gobierno del Consejo Nacional para Prevenir la Discriminación CONAPRED y de los Consejos Ciudadanos en Apoyo de Derechos Humanos AC. De Radio Educación, de la Fundación Nutrición y Salud y del Programa Universitario de Estudios de Desarrollo de esta Casa de Estudios, la UNAM. Es economista de la UNAM, inició su trabajo como investigadora en el Banco de México, el Colegio de México y la Dirección General de Estadística. Trabajó por 25 años en la Administración Pública Federal. Fue directora general de empleo del Centro para la Investigación, Desarrollo Rural Integral, CIDERI, del Instituto Nacional del Consumidor y subsecretaria de Pesca. También fue directora del Registro Federal Electoral en 1997 y secretaria de Desarrollo Social del Gobierno Federal de 1997 al 2000. En la Administración Pública Federal coordinó la elaboración de varios programas nacionales, empleo, alimentación, pesca y acuacultura. Inició los trabajos de la actual Encuesta Nacional de Ocupación-Empleo, la instalación del Servicio Nacional de Empleo y amplió a todo el país la red de oficinas del entonces Instituto del Consumidor. En el gobierno del Distrito Federal desarrolló los servicios comunitarios integrados SECOI, un modelo precursor de la utilización de espacios públicos con miras a la recreación del tejido social y construcción de la ciudadanía. Fue consejera de la Comisión de Derechos Humanos del DF, de la Oficina UNICEF en México, del Programa de Mujeres en el Desarrollo del BID, de la Asociación Internacional de Ciudades Educadoras y de la Asociación Internacional de Consumidores. En 1994 y 95 coordinó los trabajos técnicos para la participación de México en la Conferencia Internacional de la Mujer en Beijing en 2003 y fue uno de los 4 expertos que formularon el diagnóstico sobre la situación de derechos humanos en México para la Oficina de Alto Comisionado de las Naciones Unidas en la materia. Clara, quisiéramos escuchar tus comentarios.
Bueno, yo voy a empezar con varias disculpas. Primero voy a hablar en español. ¿No hay problema? No, bueno. Segundo, yo lamentablemente no tuve acceso a la ponencia con oportunidad y un poco haría muy breves comentarios sobre lo que Gina planteó. Y luego quisiera un poco más platicar un poquito de lo que nosotros hemos hecho desde Incide Social. Bueno, lo que nos plantea Gina es que la cultura del trabajo, el trabajo por pago, sigue siendo una cultura centrada en una concepción de que hay un ganador de pan, una persona que es remunerada en la familia, y que las mujeres esencialmente se van a dedicar a la reproducción de la fuerza de trabajo. Es este modelo, digamos, androcéntrico en términos de la cultura del trabajo, donde se espera que el hombre sea el que obtiene el dinero y que está a disponibilidad de tiempo completo para el trabajo remunerado. Y por eso la enorme dificultad de las mujeres para poder entrar a este mundo regido por una serie de jerarquías, horarios, disposición y disponibilidad, en donde ella tiene que realizar otras tareas, porque la distribución de las tareas domésticas y las tareas y la obtención de ingresos siguen siendo terriblemente inequitativas. Y además, entonces, cuando la mujer entra al mundo laboral, entra desde la universidad a reproducir los roles que venía haciendo, para los cuales fue socializada a nivel de la familia, y entonces entra a estudios en materia de educación, en materia de cuidados en salud, y eso hace que también al insertarse en las empresas, muchas veces las ocupaciones en donde, bueno, no muchas veces, las ocupaciones en donde están más mujeres son generalmente ocupaciones extensión de su función en el hogar. Pero lo que me parece muy interesante de lo que plantea Gina es que aún a niveles directivos, el desempeño al interior del trabajo, cuando llegan a ocupar posiciones de dirección, reproducen otra vez tareas que tienen que ver mucho con su formación femenina. Entonces, yo creo que uno de los temas que está muy vigente en términos de las demandas del mundo feminista es este asunto de la conciliación o armonización entre trabajo y vida familiar. Creo que es uno de los asuntos en donde hay más pelea y va mucho, yo diría por dos vertientes. Una, este tema de parental leave, que se ha estado avanzando, pero creo que otro de los grandes temas que se plantean es la generación de sistemas de cuidado que puedan ayudar y suplir algunas de las tareas que lamentablemente por varias causas que yo quisiera comentar después, han sido desatendidas. Hay una disminución de los tiempos que los miembros adultos de las familias destinan al cuidado de las nuevas generaciones. Entonces, ese es el tema que a nosotros nos ha preocupado. Es decir, desde Incide Social, que trabajamos familia desde hace 20 años, más o menos, lo que nos ha preocupado más en los últimos años con la guerra en la que estamos en este país, porque estamos en una crisis humanitaria y una guerra terrible, es qué ha pasado con las familias en su rol de reproducción de seres humanos, como espacio fundamental de socialización de los niños. Y lo que hemos encontrado es, obviamente, que las familias son una construcción social, que han estado cambiando permanentemente, se transforman por factores económicos, sociales, demográficos, culturales e incluso políticos, que tenemos ya una serie de estructuras familiares que ni nos hubiéramos imaginado. Hay algo que llaman familias dona, por ejemplo, en México, que son las familias donde están solo los abuelos y los niños, porque la generación intermedia o migró o fue muerta, desplazada, asesinada, ¿no? Entonces, tenemos un cambio en las estructuras familiares muy fuerte, y uno de ellos, por ejemplo, el 25% ya de las familias son encabezadas por mujeres. Entonces, como economista, a mí lo que a veces me ha interesado más es la unidad familiar como unidad generadora de ingresos y como unidad de gasto. Y lo que hemos visto es que las fuentes principales de ingreso de las familias, que es casi el 70% deriva de trabajo asalariado y un 11% deriva de trabajo independiente, ha sido muy atacada por la política que se ha seguido en este país por 40 años. O sea, los niveles de ingreso que tienen mucho que ver con una fijación del salario mínimo en este país han ido cayendo espectacularmente a nivel de las personas. Actualmente se requieren 4 personas a salario mínimo para ganar lo que se ganaba en 1976. O sea, si uno ve las gráficas de salario mínimo es para ponerse a llorar. Estamos con un salario mínimo por debajo incluso de los países más pobres de América Latina, porque ha sido la estrategia de contención salarial la que ha permitido que México, más que ha permitido, es la ventaja comparativa que ofrece México en la economía globalizada. Y esto ha tenido un efecto perverso en las familias. O sea, las familias han tenido que usar a todos sus miembros, adultos y a veces hasta los niños, para poder obtener ingresos en una economía de mercado. Ya estamos hablando de cerca del 80% de la población en México que vive en zonas urbanas. Entonces, para poder sufragar o satisfacer sus necesidades, tienen que salir obligadamente a obtener ingreso. Y esto ha provocado una desatención de las tareas de cuidado, particularmente de niños y adolescentes. Lo que encontramos es que muchos niños y adolescentes en este país, y particularmente en ciertas zonas, por ejemplo, en las zonas de Maquila, que son las ciudades más violentas, las ciudades del norte del país, es Tijuana, Matamoros, Reynosa, Ciudad Juárez. Los niños, estos ninis de los que a veces se burlan, que me parece un drama hablar de decirles ninis, se encuentran solos, viven mucho tiempo solos. Los niños en estas ciudades, porque las madres trabajan en Maquila, porque los padres cuando trabajan tampoco los pueden atender, están solos mucho tiempo. Entonces, nosotros planteamos que este país, como constructor de seres humanos, ha fallado violentamente y tiene mucho que ver con los niveles de violencia que vivimos. Por el lado del consumo, las familias de menores ingresos ocupan el 50% de su ingreso en alimentos, 11% en transporte y otro 11% en energía y combustibles. Y esos 3 sectores han sufrido incrementos de precios espectaculares en el país porque hemos generado una dependencia alimentaria del exterior. Entonces, cuando hay problemas internacionales, como los hubo en el 2007-2008, con un incremento espectacular de los precios de los alimentos, las familias mexicanas sufrieron brutalmente por esta creciente dependencia. Entonces, tanto por el lado del ingreso como por el lado del consumo, las familias están siendo muy agobiadas, las de menores ingresos en el país. Un mecanismo de compensación ha sido el mandar trabajadores al exterior y los programas de transferencias monetarias de ingreso. En el decil más bajo de ingresos, el ingreso, 40% del ingreso de ese decil proviene de remesas, de transferencias monetarias. En este momento, el programa más grande de transferencias monetarias en México tiene más de 6 millones de familias a las cuales les está dando dinero. Entonces, en un contexto de este tipo, uno se pregunta cómo no vamos a tener un país violento. Si hemos construido niños abandonados, solos, las escuelas tampoco ejercen ya una función de socialización adecuada. En las investigaciones que nosotros hemos hecho, los maestros cada vez se separan más de los niños, les tienen miedo y entonces ya no ejercen una función de contención. Lo que hemos destruido y de una manera, por muchos factores, es las capacidades de contención de los grupos familiares y de las escuelas y de la comunidad. Entonces, el tema para nosotros en ese momento es cómo podemos desarrollar políticas de familia que permitan, yo no sé si se pueda recuperar, que permitan recuperar esa capacidad de contención y de fijación de límites y reglas que tenían las familias. Entonces, desde esa óptica, nosotros vemos además un incremento de grupos que derivan de la guerra en México. Ya tenemos 310,000 personas desplazadas en el país. En los últimos 15 años ha habido 330,000 homicidios, que generalmente son hombres, y entonces se quita de las familias a uno de sus capitales para poder obtener ingresos. Y entonces las familias están también dañadas por homicidios, por la cantidad de homicidios y la pérdida de hombres en las edades de generación de ingresos, por desapariciones, el cálculo son 30,000 desapariciones, y por el desplazamiento, o sea, las familias están perdiendo sus patrimonios, se han tenido que salir de las zonas a donde no solamente está el crimen organizado, sino incluso empresas mineras y empresas mineras canadienses que hacen colusión con el crimen organizado y acaban sacando a las familias de sus comunidades. Y la delincuencia está despojando a gentes de sus tierras y de su patrimonio en varios estados de México. Entonces, como conclusión, desde mi punto de vista, hay una presión externa muy fuerte sobre las realidades y las tareas que tenían que cumplir las familias, y particularmente las familias de más bajos ingresos en el país. Y con eso yo termino mi comentario.
Muchísimas gracias, Clara, doctora Zabludowski. Yo quisiera rápidamente permitir al público si hay un par de preguntas. If you have one or two questions for our two panelists, we have little time, but still we do have time for a couple of questions. So please feel free to tell us if you have any questions. Chin Chunji, please.
Yeah, I really enjoyed, the plenary this morning. Really, thank you. And yes, okay. And I especially thank you for a complimentary, message from both speakers. Gina was talking about the higher level, how unpaid. Actually both. You talk about the executive who are unmarried and old mothers, and also the informal workers. Well, Clara really alert, for most of them who has been out of the extreme poverty, and they really, remind me of the hardship all these families are facing. And so I probably would just raise two small questions. For Gina, I was thinking about, you mentioned about the country level and how they have all different kind of policies or their proportion of women executive in each country. That's, forgive me for my relative unfamiliarity with the situation in this region. It's somewhat connected to the social economic development of each country. If the country is more developed or better economic situation, then probably the women executive proportion will be higher. Is that the case or not? That's just my question. And on the other level, for your second subject, you mentioned about the informal female workers in the family firms. Do you have this concept what we call boss's wife? She always, like in Taiwan, we have this small enterprise. They always say, no, I don't work, but everybody knows she's in charge of everything. Yes. So of course you flatter the boss's wife first before anything can go through. So in that word, their status is not really low, but I don't know if that's the situation here. Right, okay. Now, may I also raise a question for Clara?
Of course.
Yeah, I was thinking about, because I work with World Vision, yeah?
Put the microphone directly to your mouth, precisely, sorry, so that we can hear you. Que lo repita todo. Sí, no, que lo repita.
Sí, I'm not used to it. All right. Clara. Oh, yes, this is better. Okay.
The one for G. Yeah, would you repeat them? Because I didn't listen them well.
Okay. My question, the first question is on the macro level. Does the proportion of women executive increases as the country's economic level is better off, in this region? That I'm not sure. And then on the micro level, when you talk about the informal role that wife assumes in family firms, and they are low, they try to undermine themselves. But how about the concept boss's wife? Does it exist in this region? That's my question. And for Clara, I really want to thank you for reminding us of all the hardship all these families are facing. Now, if both parents has to go to not even to the urban city or even abroad, to work for a livelihood, to support the family, I just wonder what is their concept of family in their mind when they realize if they bear children, no one will care for them. And I understand that government also have difficulties in providing adequate food and housing and everything. What are the possible solutions nowadays? I understand that because I have been associated with World Vision for the last 20 years, and I know that what the private sectors, the great work they have been doing, in many parts of the society. But what is the role between government and private sector? Maybe you can give us some, insight.
Y el sector privado. ¿Sí? ¿Cuál es el concepto de la familia en este contexto que nos describiste muy peculiar, donde ambos padres tienen que salir incluso a otros países para trabajar? ¿Sí? Muchas gracias.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question. Well, the first question, I think that it has to do more with the type of actions of the country or of the company than the quantity of women on executive level in different countries. That was your question, and how much it has to do with the economic level of the country, right? Well, I think that it has to do more with the social policies of the country and of the policies of the corporation. Because, for example, in Mexico, during some time, the corporations that are mainly foreign capital, not the Mexican corporation, because here we have big Mexican corporations, no, also. But the companies who have mainly capital who is foreign, since they follow the policies, the company policies that they have in other countries. If they have diversity programs in companies that in the main sede, ¿cómo se dice la main sede? In what? In the headquarters, usually from the headquarters they say, well, you have to have policies for women and flexible hours also in Latin America, so those companies put that flexible hours, and it doesn't have to do with the country where they are, but they come from the company. And also it depends on the government policies more than in the level. If there are countries like where they have social policies in relation to paternity, social leaves, and everything like that, I think it has to do more like that than that with the level of the company, because in the United States, for example, the presence of women in executive positions, it's not very high, no? And I think you know more about that, but I think that's an example that they don't have. One of the countries that it's clearly not have service and paternity leaves and things like that. And the other one, it's a very important thing that about the boss wife. Yes, it's an important term, and I think that it has to do with invisibility again. No. Am I right? So you don't see the boss wife, but in reality, she's the one who is taking care of the business, and she doesn't go there one day. No one knows what to do. But if you ask her, are you working out of your home? She usually tells you, no, I just go to the office to visit my husband or to visit my son and things like that. And the other acceleration that I have to do is that in my presentation, even though I started with the higher levels of society, I mean, women in executive position, the last part of the presentation, it really has to do with poverty levels, because women are getting as informal workers, self-employed or in company with the families. You know, they put, I don't think an enterprise is a good term to name all the different sides of business. That's one of the things that we have to, because the definition of business owner is just if you are the owner of the business, and my self-definition is at least you employed one besides yourself. But in this range, if you are talking at micro business, they are really at the poverty level. So in the last part of my presentation, I'm talking about poverty levels and women who doesn't have any other option, that get in touch with the family or in touch with the sons or in touch with the daughters or their sisters, because they are seeing that if they don't open any kind of business, they are not going to have a future for their son or their daughters earning any money. So I went from the higher levels to the really, really lower levels of society. Those who don't have any chance for a job to get offered to them. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, in Spanish again. En México, tanto para el gobierno, los gobiernos, como para las empresas, en su gran mayoría, los trabajadores son solo un factor de la producción y representan un costo. Y les preocupan sus niveles de productividad, y entonces piensan que con la capacitación y la educación van a ser más productivos los trabajadores. Yo voy a decir una cosa muy fuerte delante de China y Salo. Yo creo que la productividad en este país tiene mucho que ver con la baja calidad de los empresarios y la ausencia de empresarios, y no tiene que ver con la fuerza de trabajo mexicana. Pero el tema es que no consideran que los trabajadores tienen una familia y tienen toda una parte de responsabilidades de su vida familiar. Entonces, desde mi óptica, el sector público no hace nada para atender este tema de las migraciones de trabajadores. Afortunadamente, actualmente estamos con un saldo migratorio negativo. México ha dejado de expulsar trabajadores. El sector privado menos. Para el sector privado, los trabajadores siguen siendo una pesadilla porque los tienen que usar y les tienen que pagar, aunque hay ahora una mayor conciencia del bajo nivel de retribución que se les ha estado pagando. O sea, ahora los empresarios están peleando por mejorar el nivel de los salarios de los trabajadores, y quienes se oponen son las autoridades monetarias del país. Y de los últimos 40 años, los salarios en este país han sido fijados por el Ministerio de Hacienda y por el Banco de México, el Banco Central. La función fundamental del Banco Central no es el crecimiento o el desarrollo, sino tener baja la inflación. Y eso se hace teniendo contenidos los salarios. ¿Quiénes son los que entran en este caso a atender este tipo de problemáticas donde papá y mamá se tienen que ir? Es la familia nuevamente. Son los abuelos, los tíos, y hay también una serie de familias constituidas por hermanos, donde un hermano se vuelve el hermano parental y asume el cuidado de los niños. O sea, las deficiencias de política de familias y de falta de conciencia de esta necesidad de conciliar trabajo y familia por parte de las empresas acaba quedando a cargo de las mismas familias. En México todavía, curiosamente, las familias nucleares se están reduciendo, cada vez hay una menor proporción de familias nucleares, están creciendo los hogares unifamiliares, pero también los compuestos, y hay otro término, la gente está a veces volviendo a vivir en un grupo más grande que el de familia nuclear. Entonces yo creo que tiene mucho que ver con estrategias de las familias para poder atender esta ausencia de miembros dentro del hogar.
Muchísimas gracias. ¿Tendrían una última pregunta? Por favor.
Just one comment, because Clarita mentioned me. I work a lot about family business, and I 100% the definition and everything else. I 100% agree with you. The old-time entrepreneurs and family-owned business owners, male usually, were like that. They were people who were really low class, and when they grew up, they forgot about their origins, and they were really more, slave holders than this. This has changed, not as much as I want, but this has changed a lot. Two things. One, the value of the family, their owner's family, their people's family. Family businesses, by definition, if they work, because 70% of them don't get into the second generation, and 30% don't get of the 30%, only 10% get to the third generation, which means 90% of the families are out in 2 generations. Why? Because the owners is a slaveholder, because they are sons of the owners, think they are, came from heaven, the money they get, and they lose it. And because there are a lot of situations, family situations, which are conflicts, and for many reasons, not only the economics. The people who are hired to kill people in the mafias and things like in Mexico are not the poorest, are people in the middle class and lower. So I have doubts about that. I do have all the situation about the family being really the key to these problems. And there's a new way. I hope in my lifetime I can change that situation from 100 to 70 to 30, that more people, more families, business survive. Because the family business is the key for the development of this country and are the key of the well-being and raising of the salaries. Companies or people who hire people at the minimum salaries in Mexico should be killed, because they don't really, it's a traition to the country. It's a big issue. Of course, nobody can live with that. And we have to rise it, but we have to keep inflation at a good level. Thank you.
Bueno, nada más yo quiero agradecer mucho, ya voy a hablar en español. Quiero agradecer mucho estar aquí. Yo siempre he considerado que realmente los cambios de los países y todo están mucho al interior de las familias, y siempre pues me ha interesado mucho involucrarme en estas investigaciones. No he tenido suficiente tiempo para hacerlos, ¿no? Así que muchas gracias.
Clara, un último comentario.
No, agradecer la invitación. Yo desconocía de la existencia de la red. No me muevo en el mundo académico, me muevo en el mundo del activismo cívico, y en un tiempo fui administradora pública, actividad que ha desaparecido en este país, porque ahora todos los que hacen administración pública son generalmente políticos. Y entonces, por eso a veces estamos como estamos. Gracias.
Acabo con unas anécdotas de familia, perdón. Para quien no lo saben, invitaron a Clara y a mí, y estando en cuestiones de familia, nuestras familias son conocidas desde hace mucho tiempo. Salo Gravinsky, además de ser especialista en expresiones familiares, es mi esposo. Este auditorio se llama Jesús Silva Gerson, y el papá de Salo, que era Natán Gravinsky, era un economista muy cercano a Jesús Silva Herzog y también a Clara Hussinman. Entonces, de alguna forma, para que no lo sabían, esto se ha quedado también en familia. Gracias.
Bueno, con lo cual pueden ver que efectivamente el meollo del asunto es la familia, y que es realmente el tema que nos importa a todos aquí. Yo me quedo con dos ideas: la enorme dificultad de reconciliar el trabajo y la vida familiar, y la necesidad de mejorar el papel de la familia como constructora de seres sociales, como lo dijo Clara. Ambas plantean retos enormes, tanto para políticas públicas como para políticas empresariales, pero sobre todo para grupos como el que está aquí reunido. Entonces, pues tenemos mucho trabajo por delante, y yo los invito ahorita mismo a tomar un café.
Sacar Kaneki.
Salud, tómame.
Ahí, esa chica que está, ellas dos que están hablando ahorita. Cecilia Rabel. Sí.
Sí, claro. Perdón que te apresure de esa manera. El tiempo nos comía y prefería avisar.
No, para mí al contrario, por no dejar.
No, por favor.
Como yo no sé, los especialistas son ustedes grandes.
I'm just curious, you know, I understand because but they don't value powers.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to say. And then the presence of the presence of women is less, no more.
Yes,
because they don't have family
But
policy.
how about in your region? It doesn't help with the economic inequality that
No, sure, it helps at the economic boom, but I do think that it helps the kind of policies you're putting in relation to family.
Because if we depend on individual commissions,
Yes.
the progress will be slow.
Yes.
But I really like your topic, just your topic. So
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, well.
Pero déjame que me tomen. Salo, tómame una foto aquí con la bandera. Esa es malísimo.
Sí, y además aquí, caray, con este...
Nos van a tomar una foto, a ver, vente.
Otra. Muchísimas gracias. Un gusto. Nada que lamentar. Esto es a la limón.
¿Les toman fotos todo el panel aquí?
Es que en realidad no se lo cada quien habla de y un poco ayudamos a los que no sepan una u otra cosa al contrario, claro que sí. ¿Todo bien? Ah, caray. No, ese 207, 208, 209. Segundo piso del edificio de aquí. ¿Son los tres? Son sesiones paralelas. Lo que...
¿Les toman fotos a los dos?
No sabe lo de los 207, 208 y 209 si es A, B, C. Así Tranquilo.
Sabes que de todos modos nos falta más información.
Sí. No, nada más hay que ir. Ahorita en el coffee break hay que hablar con todos y explicarles.
Maestro, le tomo foto junto al panel, ¿no? Bueno, con el panel con la mesa. ¿No? Bueno, ok, sí está. Sí, está. Un registro de la referencia.
Gracias, perdón de tardarme.
No, hombre, pero por favor, ¿de qué te disculpas? Es realmente...
Ya se fueron. Ya.
Los presentadores que tienes son de primera línea.
Sí.
Y están desperdiciando eso porque están bien. Y estos temas no se han tratado en México todavía.
No. O sea, ¿sabes qué? Yo no puedo hacer mandar a casa. O sea, ¿sí me explico? Entonces, como tú no fuiste a la presentación de hoy, por eso ya estoy como voy a hacer un poquito más relajado, pero es muy buen evento, pero por lo menos es grabación por YouTube, ¿sí? Pero de todos modos no hay pero imagínate que aquí una visión muy empresarial de Gina Zawodowski, una visión tan con Clara Guzmán, entonces sabes que eso fue como muy
oye, ¿dónde va a ser el siguiente paso? Porque no saben.
sí. Claro.